I just finished listening to most of this morning's Prof G pod. Prof G is a media personality, a broadcaster in podcast land, and he's in my rotation. I listen to all his stuff, but he keeps talking about alcohol on his shows, and all his conversation is sprinkled with alcohol references to alcohol and drugs, right? And so one of his questions today is why, right? Why is this going on? And then he went into this huge explanation, which was just so fascinating. It's like textbook alcoholism definition, right? And it's oh man, I wanted to talk about jewelry today, not fucking alcoholism.
This is a show about jewelry, why we wear it, why it matters, how it's made, and what it means. I'm Alex D, and I turn cannabis into gold. I make mind-blowing jewelry in gold, silver, and platinum from cannabis plants here in Canada for stage, screen, for people who want to rock crazy jewelry. I'm the Cannabis Goldsmith.
So here's the thing. I don't drink. I haven't had a drink since 1989, and the reason why is that I can't. I just can't do it, right? So I stopped, and in order to stop, I had to go sit through literally thousands of support groups and all this just to stop drinking alcohol. So I can understand when people are contacting him about his comments on his podcast, about how they're upsetting some of his listeners because he's making these jokes about a substance that literally kills people, right? And destroys families. But it also makes brands fabulous, right? As he said. So there's so much in it, right? There's so much in this alcohol thing, and then he went on to say that people are drinking less, and that today's youngsters are not drinking as much as people did in the past, and this generation is drinking 20% less than the previous one. So yada yada yada. But the whole question remains about him and his dropping references to alcohol and drugs in all his podcasts. Now, for me as a podcaster, myself now, I'm just an amateur at it, and with this show about jewelry that I do, art and design. Us artists tend to have issues with drugs and alcohol, probably in a larger percentage than the rest of the population. So, and I guess that would include him because I think he's a kind of an artist as a media artist or broadcaster or personality or whatever, actor on TV when he's on TV. So it's like he's in the art world too. So anyway, but let me tell you about alcoholism. I'm going to tell you about alcoholism today and how to identify alcoholics. And the easiest way to identify an alcoholic in their cups, I mean, in that is still drinking, is that's all they talk about. That's all they think about. So that's a lot of what they talk about, and it creeps into conversations. They could be talking about the weather, and suddenly, man, beers are great. When we had a beer on the patio or whatever, it always gets pulled back to drugs and alcohol. And it could be something totally different. You could be talking about Uncle Bob and the grandson, and the alcohol will somehow creep into that, right? Christmas. Oh God, let's put that. Let's shelve that one for now. But generally speaking, from sitting in thousands of support groups, I can say honestly that people who talk about alcohol frequently in their conversations, when it gets dropped in from the side, from the bottom, from the top, and nearly everything they say and do is a sign of alcoholism. It's a total sign of it. But I'm not going to diagnose him. Prof G said himself he's an alcoholic. He said this all points to him being an alcoholic. But that's great because he's doing well and he's killing it. He's making millions and he has the top rated show, I guess. So that's fine. So what we call this is functional alcoholism. This is like somebody who can hold down a job and have a family and and generally exist in the community, and a lot of them excel. A lot of them go really, really super high, right? They achieve all this great status and everything in spite of their brain being occupied by thoughts of alcohol. And when was the last time they had a drink? Where they're going to have a drink? How many bars are on the way to the restaurant that they want to go to? Maybe they won't even get to the restaurant. All this stuff is swirling around in their head, and they're achieving, and they're doing these major achievements. Now, this is the thing. A lot of people who suffer from addictions and alcohol are incredibly talented. I would say they're more talented than most people, and yet do drugs or excel at the highest levels and think about alcohol and drugs all day long. Like, there's a capacity there that if they weren't doing one thing or the other, they would be excelling in their choice, shall we say. But I think what's pissing off a lot of listeners to the Prof G show, I mean, it doesn't really piss me off. I'm just bored with it. All the jokes with like, oh, champagne and cocaine. If the stock goes up, it's champagne and cocaine. But if it goes down, it's not champagne and cocaine. It's something just horrific, right? I think a lot of the listeners he targets younger men with his shows, and this whole bringing up alcoholism in every episode or drug use is look, I'm a cannabis consumer myself. I consume it for osteoarthritis. I make jewelry out of weed. So listen to me talk, eh? But I gotta say, as a person who doesn't drink and who struggled to get over it as a young man, it nearly killed me, right? I think his language on his podcasts is his language. This is him speaking. He's telling us who he is. He's telling us what's on his mind, right? Alcohol is on his mind a lot of the time. I think the sex jokes, I don't like the sex jokes that much on the shows, but that's part of the shtick for this show. That's part of the banter. In his show with Kara, it's like, okay, let's tell the sex joke, and then Kara swats him back, and it's a little bit of tension and drama for the show as the show drops all this technical and tech content into the world. Now this is just the shall we say, the syringe that gets the medicine into the listener, the sex jokes and the banter. But alcohol, talking about alcohol like this, it's a red flag. Let's say red flag. If every second sentence out of your mouth is about alcohol and drugs, there's definitely something going on. So anyway, Prof G, at least you're consistent. Oh God, I don't know. I mean, it's your show. You can do whatever you want. But I think, targeting the younger demographic as you are and sprinkling your conversation with all this talk about alcohol and how important it is to you. And these people look up to you. These young people look up to you. I don't know if that's very wise. That's all I'm saying, Prof G. Anyway, for me, I haven't had a drink since 1989. But you know what? I'll tell you what. Today is how I think about it. I haven't had a drink today, and it's right now. It's 6:14 a.m. I have a cup of coffee, and I'm not drinking, and I haven't had a drink in 30 years, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. It's also saved me a ton of money, too, which I've invested in myself in other ways. So that's alcohol isn't everything, Prof G. Someday you'll realize that, and someday you might not even. Who knows? But anyway, let's move on to the show. I had to talk about that because what? It's just a giant red flag sticking out of his bald head. Today's show. Oh God, there's stuff going on here in Canada. You have no idea. The British Columbia government just banned jade mining. Now, British Columbia is one of the largest sources of jade in the world, and we all know how popular jade is in China, that huge market. I mean, jade is a thing. Is the thing in China. It's historical, it's ingrained in the culture, it's valuable, it's an asset, it's a way to transfer wealth between people. Jade has just this, jade is so deeply interwoven into the culture of the Chinese people. There's a market for it there that's guaranteed, shall we say. So BC has this jade mining area in the northwest. It's about 1,700 kilometers northwest of Vancouver. It's in like, I talked about the guy a few weeks ago in his motorboat going up in the Yukon, going up this river, the Nahanni River, the wilderness. It's like that. It's like wilderness area, right? Rivers and mountains and forest and that. Extremely beautiful. There's indigenous populations there. And I think what's happened is that as jade started being mined there, first slowly, and the BC government was issuing mining permits and stuff for this. And this land, I mean, apparently you have to go through indigenous land to get to this area, or some of it's on indigenous land, or it's in very close proximity to indigenous land, sharing the same water and that kind of stuff. So what that means is any pollution gets shared with everybody up there too. So people were starting to worry about that. And then there was this reality show that dropped. I've never seen it, but I heard about it. It's a show about jade mining, and it takes place in this area. And what this has increased the notoriety of the area in the public eye, and then I guess people have been showing up trying to set up jade mines in this area, and it's remote and it's beautiful, and the BC government put their foot down and said, no, we're stopping this. So they issued new rules there. They're going to shut down jade mining in the region in 5 years. They've basically given a 5-year end cap on the time where they're giving the existing miners 5 years to shut down. Basically, that's what that means. They're not gonna allow it anymore. So I don't know what that's gonna mean for jade prices, but I would think they're gonna be going up in the next 5 years. Now the thing is, this new BC law, British Columbia, for you people not in Canada, the new British Columbia laws that prohibit the mining of jade in this area. This means there's going to be no more new mining allowed, and the old mining has to end in 5 years. But it's only in this area. They're saying that you can mine for jade in other areas. The problem is, I don't think that the jade of the same quality exists in other areas. Or maybe it just isn't found yet, and maybe that's what the BC government is trying to do to encourage these prospectors away from this magnificently beautiful area of British Columbia. Anyway, so jade prices are going to change, I think. I've got a couple of huge slabs of this jade from this area that I bought at a gem show here in Canada, and I used one as the face of a sterling silver grinder. We cut a 200 carat cabochon out of this BC jade and set it in one side of the sterling silver, a full size sterling silver grinder. It's like a magnificent art piece. Well, you can use it too, but it's like a one-of-a-kind thing, right, that we made. Just a beautiful object. Jade is interesting to work with. I like it because I was actually working on another jade piece too with BC jade, but just chips, not a big, like, huge hunk of it or anything. But the chips, I was working on using the chips in a man brooch, a rolling paper, an open rolling paper with chips of jade in it. And the rolling paper would be made out of sterling silver. The chips of jade would be symbolize the weed or whatever in the rolling paper. And then a pin back on that would pin onto a lapel or scarf or whatever. And I'm thinking this design is I've got it almost fully fleshed out, but just the balance of balancing this brooch so that it sits right on a lapel or a scarf is hard. I'm still trying to figure that part out. But anyway, back to the story about the BC jade. So if you got some BC jade, keep it, or if you should maybe start ordering some now, just in case. Okay, what am I working on now? I'm working on man brooches. I'm going to launch a line of man brooches. I've got some of these huge indica leaves that I've cast and modeled, and I'm going to put pin backs on them and make brooches, like sterling silver, gold brooches out of cannabis leaves to wear on a lapel or a scarf. I'm going to start using these leaves in different ways. There'll be like a hairpin thing I have envisioned that a thing that you can wrap a woman could use to knot her hair around, like a scrunchie, except with a gold indica leaf. I think that would just be sick. So I'm working on a kind of larger leaf designed things. Right now we've got a sterling in the works. We've got 2 sterling silver belt buckles, one made out of cannabis seeds in a square field. And that's been cast in silver already. And you can see pictures of the master models on our Instagram page if you want to go there and look. But the other is a half leaf, just the tip of a leaf. But this is a massive leaf. So these buckles fit on 1.5 inch belts. So that one's been cast in silver. Then the last one, the one I'm really interested in seeing, it's a whole indica leaf that's 6 inches long and maybe 3 inches wide. It's big. It has the serrated edges of a leaf. But this is a real indica leaf, right? And it was too big to fit in our master Goldsmith Ed's casting setup. So I had to find a special flask, a stainless steel flask to put it in. It was too big for anything he had in the workshop in Toronto. So I was like, fuck, what are we going to do? I needed like a stainless steel tube, 3 inches in diameter by 7 inches tall to fit this thing in. And, they pour plaster around that, as I explained last week, and that becomes a plaster mold for the silver when it flows in. But I needed this stainless steel sleeve, and I was like, fuck. But I'm in a rural area now where my design studio is. So there's trucks around here, right? There's tractors and trucks and there's I went around to the auto parts supply places looking for stuff. And eventually I just went to a garage, one of the local garages that works on trucks and cars. And they cut me a 7-inch piece of truck muffler, stainless steel truck muffler pipe, 3 inches in diameter, exactly what I needed, right? And they cut it and they shipped it to Ed in Toronto. So he's got it. And I think when there's a moment, he's going to cast this piece, and I hope it works. Because if it does, I just want to see what it looks like. This is the artist. This is very much like photography. In the old days, when you would take a photo with film and you'd have to wait to get it back from the lab to see what it looked like, right? It's that, the waiting, the patience. I'm so fucking impatient, but just describing it is making me anxious to see if it'll work or not. Man, this is going to be a crazy buckle. It's something I don't think it will be too comfortable to wear like daily, but if you wanted to rock an event, this one would be the one to do it. So, and the other one I'm interested in is the seed field buckle, which is a field of seeds in sterling silver, cannabis seeds. But one of the seeds is going to be 14 karat gold. And I think that little thing will just be interesting. So anyway, following along the same giant indica leaf theme, this year seems to be all indica leaves in the jewelry so far. But the plant that produced the leaves for the belt buckles, and the brooches is in the ground now and growing, and it's still producing these beautiful leaves. So I'm going to be taking some smaller leaves when they're babies and modeling those. So there'll be some smaller pieces, not just these huge pieces that we tend to make. But anyway, so that's what's going on in the studio right now. As for my fundraising campaign to raise the money to digitize the huge Tribe magazine photographic archive, Preserve the Beat, the campaign is called, which you can find on Indiegogo, or go to preservethebeat.com and make a donation to help me preserve this important photography collection, which documents the birth of electronic music in Canada, the birth of DJ culture in Canada, the rise of the rave scene and the fall of the rave scene in Canada. It covers all the fashions from 1993 to 2005 that the young were wearing, that the youth were wearing, the music they were listening to, and the places they were going that are now buried under condo developments in Toronto and gone forever. So I've got 10 to 12,000 photographs that need to be digitized, and it's such an expensive thing to do. It's hugely expensive. So I started an Indiegogo campaign to raise the money to digitize this collection so it can be seen, and so people can use it in documentary films. I'm getting requests for that all the time, and so we can publish some books with these beautiful photographs of our culture. But I need to raise the money to do it, and there's not much time left. So go to preservethebeat.com and make a donation. Even $25 will help. $100 Canadian now. So if you're an American, that's like, what? That's like $50 or something for you. Anyway, make a donation of 100 Canadian dollars, and your name will go in the front pages of my book as a donor. How's that? There's some other great perks too, depending on the size of your donation. If you made a killing in crypto, for example, you should donate more, or real estate or whatever. Anyway, so I've learned so much with this campaign. It's going slow. It seems to be hung at 10%, and I've got only 30 days left to raise the money. So I'm trying to figure out ways to get around it. And there's really something I've learned some major lessons by launching this fundraising campaign. The first thing is that our communication space is fucked. It's totally fucked. For the average individual, for small businesses, the only people that can afford to exist in the current communication space are huge companies that can pay to have their messages seen on social media networks. The only other way to get noticed is on the open web with a website, which we've had since 1993, right? So we're already there. We were there before anybody. But very few people are on the web these days. It seems everyone's on Facebook or whatever, and they control those. They control the distribution of the message, of any messages on those platforms. So it becomes expensive for individuals to say raise funds or to even talk to their friends, right? Like Facebook is charging me to advertise, to spread they want my advertising dollars to connect with my own friends on my own Facebook page, right? Now I can understand that because they own the platform, but those people wouldn't be there without me. So there's that. Anyway, somebody who should really be drinking is Mark Zuckerberg. He really needs to be drinking. Anyway, what's next on the horizon with the Preserve the Beat thing? I'm going to be working extremely hard for the next 30 days on that. I've got my nose to the grindstone. I'm going to hammer it. I've got a birthday coming up. I'm going to put my birthday aside. I'm going to work right through my birthday until the very last day of this campaign to raise as much money as I can to reach this goal to digitize this huge collection of photography, because it's important. It's really important for Canada, but also for the world. I mean, to see this amazing culture we have, and for Canadians of the future to understand that they can build their own underground cultures if they want to. I've been working on my garden here. I've got the 4 weed plants in the ground, waiting for some warm temperatures to grow out bigger so I can use leaves to make jewelry. The yard is looking great. I have this lilac hedge that is maybe 30 feet or 40 feet across. It's like a grove. I don't know how many of them are in this grove, but they're all in bloom now. It's wow. I have not seen this many flowers in my yard. It's just the most amazing thing. There's apple trees in bloom, pear trees. I was thinking last year I didn't really notice it that much, and all the flowers everywhere. And then I realized it's because I had cataract surgery last year in the late fall. So I couldn't see all the colors properly. And now I can. And this is why there are so many flowers this year. It's because I can see them. It's just amazing. I'm enjoying it a lot. Spring here in Upper Canada along the St. Lawrence River. For you Americans, this is up around kind of Ogdensburg-y area, Thousand Islands area. Upstate New York, the Appalachians. This kind of vibe up here is just so nice. And spring up here is magnificent. So get outside and then take a deep inhale of the lilacs. Look at all the squirrels and bunnies running around and enjoy spring. And if you're wondering whether you have issues with alcohol or not, I suggest you talk to somebody about it. There are groups in your community. There's AA. There's different places where you can go to get information from people who have actually recovered from alcoholism. And you don't have to bottom out. You don't have to go wind up on the street in a puddle and recover from there. I mean, you can stop before that. You can stop at any time, but it takes help usually. And so do that. And when you're listening to Prof G's shows and him talking about his alcohol and drugs experiences all the time, just remember, red flag, red flag. The Cannabis Goldsmith is produced by Tribe Communications, Inc. in the Thousand Islands area of Ontario, Canada. You can see what we do at tribe.ca. Send us an email, alexd@cannabisgoldsmith.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Cannabis Goldsmith.